My name is Joe Lombardo. I'm an agent in the business for about 25 years, an agent and producer. I am on the board of ASMP in New York, and I am Pamela's partner here on Dear Curator every week. And I had the pleasure of getting to know Paulette through my experience through ASMP. So a little bit of background on that. I had joined the board. I'm on my second year now. We're doing some incredible programs. And one day I get an email from Liam Alexander, our president, saying, hey, Joe, I think this is for you to field. And just so you know, everybody, I joined the board of ASMP New York because there's no agents on any board nationally. And I thought to myself, why not join the board of the National Photo Organization so they get a perspective of the other side of the business? So it's not just photographers running other photographers' businesses, but there's an actual agent there to kind of help them with marketing and help them through some of the legalese and the forms and some of the production issues. Like, I do believe that our boards need to be more diverse. So I decided to join with all of my resources to kind of add to the flavor. And so there I was, year two, thinking, I hope I'm being useful on this darn board. And then I get this email from Liam saying, we have one of our members that is requesting an agent help her or somebody help her from ASMP with a project that just came in. I don't know any of the information. I'm going to forward you the email. So I replied to the lovely Paulette, and I got to know her work vis-a-vis, because I hadn't yet been able to study you, Paulette, but I got to know your work and fell immediately in love with what you do. But before I summarize what you do, I'd love for you to tell our guests what you do. And then we can talk about our process and how this whole job thing worked out. But yeah, Paulette, the stage is yours.
But thank you, Pam, and thank you, Joe, for inviting me on this. It's very exciting, and I love to tell my stories. So, well, I'll just tell I'm a fine art photographer. I started my photography in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where I lived for 14 years. Actually, I was a member of ASMP out there many years ago. And I fell in love with my dearest friend, Sarah. I have it here. She did these beautiful big tempera natura morta paintings. And I would go to her little adobe house, and I absolutely was, as you would call, gobsmacked. The 80s were for John Marion, who was then the president of Sotheby's. So I got a bird's eye view of the art world. So, I would, Gregory Peck would come into John Marion's office.
Wow.
I mean, Dustin Hoffman and Jackie Onassis would come with her raincoat, and it was it was my first real job. As a photographer, was photographing their collectibles catalog. So there I was photographing Lou Gehrig's jersey and Babe Ruth's, baseball mitt and all these old, vintage baseball cards. And then I started photographing Calder, Ansel Adams photographs. And then Denise said, well, why don't you contact these galleries? And I did. I got a lot of doors closed. Thank you. I had created a portfolio. I'd bring them to gallerists in New York, and they're very beautiful. And, and then she said, well, why don't you contact Robert Klein Gallery in Boston? I think that would be really, work out. And they had the whole concept of a still life of a banquet, and how they did all these storyboards, which was so helpful for everyone, the prop person, the flower people. They created a storyboard, and they took all of my images from my website, and they actually made a table, created a long table, and they took all of my photographs and they blended them and mixed them up and put the elements of Gucci's perfume bottles within that banquet. And it was just extraordinary what they created. And that's actually what I wound up photographing. So
essentially, for everybody that's on the feed, and for your education too, Pamela, when art directors concept a campaign, they have layouts and what we call comps come to us.
Yeah.
And the unique thing about this was, and obviously the detail on all of this got bigger and bigger and bigger as we went along, but the initial comps were all of Paulette's photography.
I was gonna say that's so interesting, because I can imagine other situations where you're either hiring an artist to sort of conceive together something, you know, or you've got an artistic director that's saying this is what we want to do and da 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 da. But what's interesting to me, and I think probably pretty unique, is that they're inspired by already existing work that you've created and wanting to sort of not just hire you for, you know, the physical act of photographing something, you know, or to be creating something new, but they're also sort of like buying your intellectual property that you
are, and they sort of admitted that you know, we're taking your artistic milieu and we want to use it for this campaign.
You know, it doesn't happen for everyone, but what it's kind of like making me think about is how, you know, if you really produce good work that's sort of like the work that you want to do, and you hone in on it, and you make your vision come alive, like other people will notice it, right? You know. And so what Paulette has done is she's produced a portfolio of work that, you know, is like true to what has inspired her, and she's, you know, and then she, you know, years later somebody is coming along and they're seeing it, and they're, you know, they're saying this is incredible, you know. And so I think all artists have within them that thing, and it's not always easy to just like focus on the work that you should be doing, but if you can do that and you are making that work, you know, to the caliber you know, that you can, then, you know, other people will notice it.
My first love was antiques, and so I grew up a mile away from my grandmother, and she loved miniature little things. And
where was that, Paulette? Where
she in Rockville Center and in Long Island, and she only lived a mile away from us, and so she took me to this antique store, and she bought me this tiny little wooden table with little chairs, and I thought, oh my God, I love this. And so I started collecting little things.
So you would feel so inspired by like these Baroque still lifes, right? Because it's such there's so much sort of like, well, there's layers to that kind of work. There's just the drama and the rich sort of beauty that, you know, is present, but also each of the individual things have these sort of like meaning to them.
And a sentimental person, that those objects all have meanings to me. And even in my still life photographs, besides the objects that I put in there, I put little secrets in there. You know, I might put two little things like sitting next to each other, or, you know, a stray little leaf all by itself, sort of depending on what mood you know, I've been in. And actually one of your questions was about why do I love photography? So I'm going to just read this to you because it's easier for me to read it.
Sure.
But it's on the homepage of my website, and it says, "This beauty all around us is fleeting, and yet it can be embedded forever in a perfect moment that is a photograph." And I guess why I love photography is that I can capture a moment. I can capture the feeling that I had when I was photographing it, and I can capture all those